Staying with us on The Explainer, our conversation tonight is with the 2022 presidential aspirant and businessman, Jimi Wanjigi, who joins us this evening. We will get into some of the other deeper issues in a moment. But, you know, thank you for making the time for us on the show tonight.
Thank you so much. It's good to be here, Yvonne.
Thank you.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Let's start by getting your thoughts on the economy.
Yes.
Never has the whole country been involved, you know, in the state of the economy, the budget that's coming up, you know, the finance bill. What's your pulse or sense of where things are?
I think as a nation, we're at a very good place. A country is basically its politics and its economy. And for the first time, as you're right, you're saying, we are on the economy. And people are paying attention to detail. Mama Mboga is understanding something called debt. They're understanding an exchange rate and why it's hurting their cost of living. We are at a point where there's such a high cost of living, we're wondering, what is this that's causing our pain? What is the reason? We work very hard every day, but our shilling is not stretching. And Yvonne, I want to tell you, we are at a precipice. The biggest outflow of our tax revenue is debt. And that's wherein lies the problem. The finance bill you've seen being argued about today, being debated today, they are raising taxes for only one reason, to deal with something called debt. Kenya Kwanza government is proposing to raise tax revenue from what we have estimated this year. I think the previous government had put an estimate of 2.1 trillion. We have now calculated, according to the latest figures, that it will be 1.9 trillion that they'll collect. They want to propose that in 1 year, they are going to raise tax revenue from 1.9 trillion as it is today to 2.9 by the end of next year. By 1 trillion shillings in 1 year, a statistical impossibility. Mwai Kibaki took power in 2003 from Daniel Arap Moi. He found tax revenue at 200 billion. It took him 10 years to get to almost a trillion. Uhuru Kenyatta took it at 1 trillion from Mwai Kibaki. It took him 10 years to get to 1.9 trillion. But Kenya Kwanza government is saying that in 1 year, it can do what others could not even have achieved in 10 years. These are impossible targets that are very painful to Mwananchi. And the reason is primarily because 70% of our revenue is going to debt. So if you can take a pen, take 100 shillings. 70 shillings is going to debt payments. This financial year, that is 1.7 trillion. The government then needs 40 shillings to go to the county. What are we left with? Tell me, Yvonne. We're left with minus 20, minus 10. Then it needs another 50 shillings for salaries. We're left with minus 60. Then it needs another 30 to 35 for operations. So we're at minus 95. It has reached the threshold of its borrowing. 100%, more or less, of its revenue is now taking care of recurrent.
Okay, but the revenue collection for this current financial year, you know, that ends at the end of this month, was actually about 2.57 trillion. And the projected revenue collection is 2.89 trillion for the new financial year.
Where you're getting your figures from?
Where are you getting your figures from?
From the government statements. The latest one is in May. I think we sent it to you. The latest one is in May. And the figure is very clear. What you call the actual statement of revenues and account. Let me see what it is.
Because the increase is about 379.2 billion in terms of revenue collection. In fact, in the month of March of this year, KRA collected that. Yeah, so what am I looking at here?
What you're looking
to explain
at here,
to our viewers.
What you're looking at here, and you know, we sent you a slide. This is what you call the statement of actual revenues and net exchequer issues as of 31st May. This was published on Friday, June 16th. And it says the following. that tax revenue, which was originally estimated at 2 trillion, this is from the Treasury, revised to 2.1 trillion, that as of the end of May, they had collected 1.74. Now, if you calculate that on a monthly basis, it is about 150 to 160 billion a month.
Yeah.
So the end of the year is the end of June. So by the end of this month, if you add it, it will come to about 1.9 trillion. That is the most they can collect, and these are their own figures.
So what you're saying is the government is not able to collect what they have projected they will? Which is 2.89 trillion
according to their own figures.
Year?
According to their own figures. According to their own figures, they have so far collected 1.7 on what you're saying was projected as 2.5. And if we go by their monthly collection, they will not go beyond 1.9. So they will fall far short of the 2.5 figure you're talking about.
Okay.
Now, in these are published, these actuals are published monthly.
Yeah.
And if you see, they said the original estimate was 2 trillion.
2 trillion, yes.
And then revised to 2.1. I don't know where this 2.5 figure is coming from.
It's probably their projections.
Yes.
But so let's understand. You're saying, obviously, we will not be able to collect the amount of money that we intend to in the coming financial year.
Yes.
Why is that?
Now, there are many reasons for that, but I think let me address it differently. Of the 1.9, it's important to understand this financial year, our debt payments are 1.36. In other words, 1.4. So you're talking about a 70% debt servicing ratio. Now, that is the biggest problem. If so much money is going out, very little is coming back to Wanjiko. And the market, the government is forced to come back to money for us from our local resources, from banks and so on, to sap up for their own consumption. That is taking away money from us. And this is the million-dollar question. What is going on here? It has been going on for a very long time, and we've now reached a level that is not sustainable. You see, normally in our homes, to put it simply, if you go to a bank to ask for a loan, and you are earning 10,000 shillings, they will not give you a loan of more than 30% of your income, 3,000 shillings. Because they say, if you go beyond that, you enter a debt trap. You need more and more money to finance your expenditure, your needs. So you need to borrow and keep borrowing and keep borrowing. We entered a debt trap years ago. We are now at the tail end. That's why we are feeling the pain.
Yeah.
When Kibaki took power, right, he did not inherit debt from President Moi. The Paris Club agreements of rescheduling had made sure there was hardly any debt. Now, when he handed over power to Uhuru, he was paying 18 shillings of every 100 to debt. 18 shillings. Uhuru has handed over a plate to Kenya Kwanza government where 70%, 70 shillings of every 100 is going to debt. It's not sustainable. It was long not sustainable. So we have reached the end of our road, and that is what is stunting our growth.
But yet, Jimmy, you say we paid that debt. But at the same time, you say we're in a debt trap.
This is the million-dollar question. You see, everything is anchored on law, Yvonne. Everything is anchored on law. There are two places where our debt is and must be articulated in the Constitution. Two places. It is anchored in Consolidated Fund, that's 2061, which is very specific, that all revenues of government, whether it is debt, whether it's tax, goes there. The second section, which is a very important section, that I've seen even in this budget has been ignored, is what is called section of the Constitution, Article 220. And it reads as follows. The budgets of the national and county governments shall, in other words, must, contain estimates of revenue and expenditure, differentiating between recurrent and development expenditure. It goes on to talk about the anticipated deficit. Now, what you see every time the minister, like he did last week, go to Parliament, he presents what is called the Appropriations Bill. And the Appropriations Bill is the budget. That is the budget. That is what Parliament passes. But the appropriations bill we have been seeing is only on expenditure. Development expenditure and recurrent expenditure. They have never, in the last 10 years, adhered to this principle of revenue and expenditure according to the new constitution. They have never tabled a revenue appropriation bill.
Okay.
Ever.
I want us to understand one thing, because you have said that we have overpaid our debt.
Yes. So what?
So help me understand.
That's where I'm going.
Yeah.
That's where I'm going.
Okay.
So let me be very simple.
Yeah.
What is happening is that our debt is thus anchored in a book like this.
Okay.
Right? Which is development expenditure appropriation. Mm-hmm. This is where it is anchored. So our debts that we are taking, because the laws also say in the Public Finance Management Act, that the law, we must only take debt for development. Mm-hmm. In the medium term. We can only take debt for development. So the development, these two books you're seeing here, carry all the loans we are taking for development. So what we did is that we audited the last 10 years of these two books. Development expenditure, development appropriations. And we found that Parliament had approved 2 trillion worth of loans in the 2 terms of Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. Then we went to the Exchequer account, consolidated account at Central Bank, because they publish it. It's there for us to see. And it shows the loans that have been taken. What it showed is that during the 2 terms, 6 trillion had been taken. So 4.1 trillion, 4.1 was not approved by Parliament. Now, you can't take a loan that's not approved by Parliament.
But yet we did.
Yes, we did.
Okay, so your argument is that procedure was not followed.
Not only procedure, this is the law.
Okay, all right.
Now Yvonne, even before you go on.
Yeah, because I just
even before you go on.
Yes.
Even before you go on. This is a breach of the Constitution. This is impunity.
Yeah.
All right? Because if 2 trillion was allocated to projects, what did the extra 4 trillion go to do? Because it's not for projects. Okay. And you can only take debt for projects.
All right. So we're talking about law and procedure that you say was not followed. We are supposed to borrow only for development, but we have ended up perhaps borrowing for recurrent expenditure as well.
Kindly
show us. I want to understand the overpaying of our debt.
Now, it's very simply this.
Because what you have raised is the issue of procedure. Okay, fine.
I'm saying
Let's
the law.
back that to the side.
I'm saying the law. The law is this way. The law puts it this way.
Understood. So have we overpaid our debt?
100%. Because it goes like this. If we took, right? I said debt is in development expenditure. Our repayment of debt is in this second book here called the estimates of recurrent expenditure. This is where all our payment from our taxes, the 70% I was telling you about, shows that it has gone to paying our debts. If you audit our payments, we have paid a total of 5.6 trillion over the last 9 years.
But Jimmy, the debt was incurred, whether procedurally, lawfully or not, as you say.
Yes.
Correct?
No.
No?
Yes.
Let me understand what you're saying, because you've said that the debt that was taken did not follow the law or procedure because we're only supposed to borrow for development expenditure. Mm. Am I with you so far?
Yes.
Okay. But that more has been borrowed, not according to the law.
In other words, more that we don't know about.
Okay, fine.
So I don't.
All right,
you know, when you ask the question about whether it has been taken, I don't know. You don't know, because we are only supposed to take for development. If we took for something else, they have not told us. Nobody has told us. It is showing their figure, but nobody has told us what it has been taken for.
Yeah.
And then on top of that,
however,
yes,
it has been taken.
No, I don't know. According to what they have showed us, they say so. Now, the other thing you must understand, and it's very interesting.
So then
you understand,
what are you implying?
Understand these numbers. I want you to understand these numbers.
I want our viewers to follow,
yes.
Jimmy. So you say there's money that was taken for development expenditure. There was other monies that you say they claim they borrowed, but you say, according to you don't know what for.
Yvonne, let me make it very simple.
Yeah.
Very simple in our audit, right? Let us take your number, right? So I'm saying 2 trillion was lawful. They took 6. So let's take their number, 6.1. was taken. We also calculated that the carryover from Mwai Kibaki was 2.3. So add that, you have 8.4 trillion. That was as of March last year. That was taken. So let's go by your argument. In the recurrent appropriations bill, the 9 years, we paid 5.6. Why is that figure static? Why doesn't it ever minus?
So what are you saying?
So what I'm saying is this.
That's what I want
That's what
our
I'm
viewers
saying.
to
I'm saying
understand.
this is massive theft. Massive theft.
By whom? Because
That,
you say this money,
now,
this has been going on over...
Let me tell you, this is massive theft.
From when
theft,
and by whom?
Theft, it started in 2014. It started in 2014.
Okay.
And on this, I'll hold 2 people accountable who are still there today because they're carrying on the same mess. The CS, who is currently in the Treasury, called Professor Dongo. He was then the governor of Central Bank. The PS Dhuge, who is now the governor of Central Bank, are responsible for this mess. This is where it begins.
What about the people they report to?
And the people they report to at the time.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, politically, let me just expand. The new constitution has a very interesting proviso. It says there is no expenditure that is done from the budget unless the presidential warrants are signed. So you cannot take money, borrow money, spend money without the presidential warrant. So each president is accountable for anything that happens with money. It starts there.
I would like
now,
to...
this budget is going to make, for the first time, President Ruto responsible because he will sign the presidential warrants after the budget. It will make him responsible. But as of today, Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta is responsible up until the end of June this year.
I have a question for you when it comes to responsibility. If what you say is true, how come this hasn't been picked up by others? Let me give you an example. The IMF and the World Bank, who take our economy, our budget, even the lending that they give us through a very strict, scrutinous process. So they look at everything from managing how we manage our public debt, how we raise taxes to pay back the monies we owe to them and indeed to others. They do the Article 4 reviews every single year. How is it that they missed what you are now claiming?
Do they follow the law? Do they look at our laws?
So what you're saying, Jimmy, is this is a big conspiracy between IMF, World Bank, Eurobond investors, government here. Is that what this is? Because nobody else has made the claims. And I'm not discounting the claims. It is your truth and you're entitled to it. But then if nobody else has picked it up, then either they are incompetent or they are in on it. Which is it?
Let me even start by saying that why do we hold foreigners responsible? Let's start at home. Let's start at home.
I'm not holding them responsible. I'm just asking how they could have missed it, in your view.
You see, maybe they don't look at our laws. But let me start with home. Because home, we look at our laws. We're supposed to. So Parliament, on one hand, is approving debt to be taken for development of 2 trillion, but it's paying back 5.6 with the same appropriation called recurrent. So Parliament is not reading. There's a very good professor who told me recently that the Mzungu knows one thing, that if you want to hide something from an African, you put it in a book. We don't read. We don't understand. We don't look at it in relation to our laws.
Okay.
So what we did,
what
we did was very clearly read these books in relation to our Constitution.
Jimmy, I would like you to answer my question, please.
Yes.
You say you've done your research, well and good. How is it that other people have missed this? If you're saying the loans that were taken were not according to the law, well and good. We have taken Eurobond 1.
Yes.
We have taken Eurobond 2,
yes,
which matures, by the way, in June of 2024.
Yes.
All of them do their due diligence, we would imagine, one would hope, to take a look at what our financial procedures are, our ability to pay, what the money is being used for, where it goes. So to say that there's been a heist of this nature would be to imply that either all of these other people are in on it or they are completely blind to it. And that is why I'm asking, what do you think the reason could be that nobody else has picked this up? Are they incompetent or are they in on it? I'm not saying they're responsible. You know, it's the Kenyan leaders who are responsible to the Kenyan people. But why do you think they missed it, considering the scrutiny they take our budgets through?
They may take our budgets, but I don't know whether they take our laws. And this is why I don't want to hold them, because they may have many motives. There is an extension of neocolonialism. There's an extension of greed. There are Ponzi schemes. We've seen them all over the world. I don't want to infer their intent.
Are you then inferring that
I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example.
Are running a Ponzi scheme
now
in
you
Kenya?
have talked about Eurobonds. Eurobonds. You've talked about Eurobonds. What development project have Eurobonds funded? Show me in the appropriations development what they have funded. We send out prospectus. We say it's for development. Which one? And we've taken 3. What development project is attributed to a Eurobond? There is not one. Just like I say, there is not one development project, one attributed to domestic debt. Not one. And domestic debt is huge.
So, Jimmy, where is all this money going to?
That is the big question.
And who's responsible for it?
Now, I can tell you about what we discovered in part 2 of our investigation. In part 2, we looked at domestic debt, and we categorically labeled how much has been taken of domestic debt over the last 10 years. And if you look categorically at it, I don't know whether you have our schedule there, the numbers are staggering, right? In 2015, 292. Do you know how much we paid back? 287. You go by all the years. Each year, we are paying similar amount as we are taking, which means that we had the tax revenue. So we didn't need to take it. But there is a clear motive. The motive is simply that you have an interest payment that eventually gets paid after 10 years of 2.6 trillion. Are we together, Yvonne? That every single year, we have borrowed 300 billion from domestic, but our tax revenue are paying 300 almost. The next year, the same. So we have the tax revenue to take care so we don't need to borrow. But the motive becomes interest. Who are the beneficiaries of this interest?
Tell us.
The banks. And whoever are marketing these bonds. The most recent bond that you're talking about is at 16%. So you and I are going to borrow at what? If we go to a bank, over 20%. And what is that 213 billion funding? It is nowhere in the appropriations that Dongo put. So it is not funding any development. It's for which consumption? Consumption. Yet if you look at the recurrent, there is nowhere, this is what we are wondering, there is nowhere where our money is short to pay for salaries, to pay for counties, to pay for pension. So
you contend that our tax revenue collections are enough to fund the country's expenditure?
In totality. So why are we borrowing?
But why do we have pensions delayed? County disbursement has delayed for about 3 months. Capitation to schools has also been a delay.
What I'm trying to say, Yvonne, is that what Parliament passes and what the Treasury is doing are two different things. They're two different things. Parliament passes what you and I see, what is transparent. What the Treasury does, it doesn't even follow the law. It does its own things and comes to tell us different stories. So, and this is where we have got to start asking ourselves many, many questions. They went for Eurobond. It is now something like 900 billion, 3 times. What have they funded? What project have they funded? Tell me who did their due diligence that it went to fund a bridge or a road. So it does not exist.
Why would those investors then continue to give money? Why would we continue to accept money? So now, so far, we have, the local banks as well. So now you're roping in just about everybody. Local banks are in this with government, with Parliament, because Parliament has failed to hold the executive to account.
Absolutely.
So this is a grand heist. Is that what you're saying?
That is absolutely what I'm saying. It's the grandest heist we have ever seen in Kenya.
So everybody, local banks, you say the IMF don't do their due diligence because they perhaps don't read our laws. You've got the executive, you've got Parliament, you've got the banks. Everybody is in on this heist. Nobody is raising the red flag other than you are.
And you know what I would like, Yvonne, is that how come nobody's answering me? Nobody's saying I'm talking rubbish. Not one person has stood up and said, Jimmy, you're talking rubbish.
So what do we do now?
That's the point.
No, what would you do now? Because what you have said
immediately.
is, and again, because some are either not reading our laws, not competent or doing their due diligence, are in on it, and that is just about everybody. So what now? What do you do with these claims? Where do you go?
You know what happened? Let me just give you a small story. I had a banker friend of mine who called me after, I think I appeared on TV last week somewhere. And he says, just wait a minute. He owns a bank. And he says, are you saying these bonds we are taking, there's somewhere we are missing out on the law? I said, yes, call your risk fellow. Right? And the risk said, oh, no, but if central bank is issuing bonds, it's lawful. No, no, no. It's anchored in development, anchored in this. And they started panicking. They do not read the bottom line. So don't expect the people who are giving us Eurobonds to. As far as they're concerned, they just want the sovereign guarantee. They're making huge profits, right? It's the best place, especially when there have been low interest rates abroad. This is a great place to go and put our money and earn a huge interest rate. Now, that is their motive. They're earning huge profits at our expense because our people are not following. The people responsible are not following the law. And it starts, as I said, the budget must put down appropriations of expenditure and revenue. It's never been done for 10 years. You've never seen revenue appropriation. That's where it starts. What they do is every month they come and tell you, oh, we have borrowed domestic. Why isn't it in the revenue estimates? This is the biggest heist this country has ever seen. And it is corroborative of all those people you are talking about. All of them. Somewhere along the way, people decided the Constitution is irrelevant.
So
we are going to do what used to still happen before the 2010 Constitution. We are going to ignore law.
So all of the people I've talked about, meaning who?
I am very clear. The banks, domestic banks, are part of this. Anybody who has given us a sovereign bond, Eurobonds, are part of it. IMF, that are so-called underwritten, are part of this. The Treasury is deeply in this. In fact, as I said earlier, all our revenue and expenditure must be in the consolidated fund. I want to assure you, if you go, you will not find any of these items in the consolidated fund. So how are they expending it? That means we have 2 books at the Treasury, or 3 books, or 4 books. Something has been going on here, and we are now at the end of it. Because in other countries, I can tell you, this is what you call a Ponzi scheme. A big Ponzi scheme, playing with our money. It's a big Ponzi scheme. It is theft of the highest order. I think here people know it as pyramid. This is what has been going on here. And it is so major. I would like, as I told the parliamentary committee yesterday, please bring the Treasury here. Bring Professor Dongo here and me. Bring all the Treasury people here. I will come with one person. I wouldn't even come with another. And we go through the law. We go through what they've been doing. And you will see who is correct.
So a pyramid scheme that's been masterminded and carried out by the IMF, local banks, Eurobond investors, Kenya's government, perhaps Parliament. So what do you intend to do about this?
In fact, Parliament.
Where do you go?
Parliament, from my experience of Parliament yesterday, the problem is reading. The adage of the Mzungu, if you want to hide something from an African, put it in a book. They're not reading the law in conjunction with what is there.
The Eurobond investors are not Africans.
No, I'm saying in Parliament.
Yeah.
As Parliament.
Yes, but
as
you
Parliament.
said also they
so
don't
I'm
read
excusing
the law.
them. Yes, they're not reading. They're not reading.
So nobody's reading the law.
Yeah, people here are not reading.
Not the Africans, not the,
but the
foreign investors.
Yeah, and this is the point. That's why I'm saying that it is odious. Because buyer beware. If you didn't follow the law, why should Kenyans pay? Odious debt is the following. Odious. That it did not come to our benefit. Show us where we have benefited as the sovereign.
Okay, good.
50 million
so what do we do? Do we stop paying our debt?
100%. I'm saying we have a credit. We have overpaid our debt.
By
according to our laws. 1.3 trillion. That is our forensic audit. And I want you to understand, we are the first ones who have done a forensic audit. Not just an audit like Controller and Auditor General do. This is a forensic audit, which means we took the law and we took the numbers. And we said, what is this?
So even the Controller of Budget, the
doesn't do
Auditor
that.
General,
No, they don't do that.
All of them have completely
It's not side by side with the law. They just look at numbers. And they say, oh, did this go to the project? Fine.
No, but they do look at the law, do they
Which
not?
law? Which law? Ask them. Ask them. These are, I wish.
So there's nobody that follows the law.
You know, Yvonne, I would love.
Because I'm just trying to understand.
Yes, Yvonne.
You've called it an entire pyramid scheme.
It is a total pyramid scheme.
Nobody's reading the law. So, number one, you say we stop paying our debt.
Yes.
And
we demand our credit of 1.3.
Who do you think has benefited from that credit of 1.3 trillion?
Who's it gone to? This is, I think I've articulated it. You have domestic debt. Huge benefit.
Okay, that's the banks.
Right? You have Eurobonds. Huge benefit. Huge benefit. Because remember, in all this, we have paid 5.6. Huge benefit. All right? And if you follow the money, they say you'll always catch other culprits. Follow the money. Mozambique did this in 2019 over something they call the tuna bond, very similar to our Eurobond. No benefit. They went to court, constitutional court. They got orders. Parliament was a big defendant. They got orders. No Mozambican is going to pay $1 for that tuna bond. That investigation thereafter, even IMF joined in the investigation, held Credit Suisse accountable, held a bank from Russia called RVM Bank accountable, held individuals who were in the government, the previous government, accountable. Minister of Finance, who is actually being extradited from South Africa. You had even the president's son accountable. I think he's still in jail. Okay? So they saved themselves that debt. We are saying similarly that if it is not in our laws, we are not going to pay it. We should not pay it. It did not come to our benefit. We don't know what it was taken for whose benefit. They've been unable to show us in any of these books, in any of our laws. So why should we be paying for this pain? When you're raising our taxes, we are feeling the pain. When you raise our interest rates, we are feeling the pain. It all comes to cost of living, right? These are all input costs. It hurts us every day we live. Why are we feeling this pain, yet we never took this debt? It is not to our benefit. The culprits who broke the law should be booked, and we should say no more. This is the greatest heist we have ever known in this country. You've never seen anything like this.
And those culprits are, I want us to take a break, who you feel should be arrested.
I said the first thing is that our constitution is very, very clear. The president signs the warrants every financial year. So our constitution said who is responsible. He signed the warrants. Now, he can thereafter tell us who advised him. Because maybe he was misled. Maybe there were others who are benefiting. But he is the ultimate responsible because he signs the warrants. Now we look for the rest. All those who have been the beneficiaries, we follow the money. And I can assure you, you'll catch very many culprits. Very many culprits in all this. We have done a bit more, but we are coming to that in what we call Part 4.
Okay. I think that's a good place to take a break here on the program. We have much more to talk about with you, including